you never know who's gonna pop up in New York City, right? So I don't know if you know, but if you don't know, this is Chase Jarvis. He's an amazing, amazing individual who's a photographer, and he has Creative Live, which so many ways for people to learn
Yes,
on
I
that
do.
platform. And we're always on the other side of this kind of.
right.
You're usually interviewing me,
It's
right?
true. It's true.
Right.
But
So
all things must come full circle.
all things must come full circle. So I'm excited because my buddy stopped by, and he has a new book,
Yes, I do.
Creative Calling.
That's right.
There you go, right there.
You know, this is like one of the first things I'm actually doing public about it.
Really?
Yeah, it was a treat to be able to sync up with you.
You
man.
see
Thank
that?
you.
I get it first. So
That's
I
right,
want to
he
ask
does.
a couple of questions about this book because to me, this, as I was going through it and everything, this reminds me of a enhanced or next version, next step of Rise and Grind or a comparison to
Ooh,
it, right?
enhanced. I'll take that.
Right. Yeah, because you're tapping into the creativity of people. Like I
Yeah.
was tapping into, here's the things you need to do to be proficient.
Yeah.
But after you're proficient, like how do you get creative? I mean, because if you're gonna go back down the path and just always do the same crap, then you're
Yeah.
always gonna get the same results, right?
Right.
So tell me, what's it all about?
All right. So the book it's basically based on a handful of simple principles. One, that there's creativity inside of every person. We're all born creative, and
Right.
we were also coached. Oh, you're creative. You're not. You're clever. You're an entrepreneur. These are all labels that culture places on us.
Right.
I don't believe any of it. We're all creative. Just ask any first grade classroom who wants to come to the front of the room and draw me a picture. Every hand goes up.
Right.
And then slowly we train that out of ourselves unnaturally, but we're creative at birth.
Do we get intimidated by other people because we feel creativity is purely just somebody who can paint a picture, and we say, well, then we're not because we can't paint a picture?
For sure. And the reality is that person's probably spent thousands of hours practicing.
Right.
So we're comparing ourselves all with all kinds of other people unnaturally. And what we're trying to do is tap into our own creativity, not the creativity of others, not being a painter if you're an entrepreneur, not being a dancer if you're a chef. It's really finding what you're supposed to be doing with your life. And also creativity is not just art, right?
Right.
Creativity in business, creativity in relationships, building families. All this is just putting new stuff together and doing it in your own way.
Listen, I'm a designer. I can't technically design. So what did I do? I found great people I think could take my vision and put it on something, and then great people who can wear it, who were attached to it.
Yeah.
And my vision came true.
For sure. That's
once they did it.
wildly creative. And that is my belief, A, that we're all creative, B, that creativity is it's a habit. It's not necessarily a skill. It's a process and a mindset, not some end product. And it's a muscle. Like this is the most important thing, that if acknowledging that you are creative and expressing it every day, for you it's like presenting yourself with a bunch of people who can help make a vision come true.
Right.
But for somebody else it might be different. It's just a muscle that we have to put to use to strengthen.
Have you seen creativity go on in negative ways, meaning somebody will always find a way not to take their ass to work, right, and make sure they get their little check. You know what I'm saying? And they don't, and they'll complain about the rest of the world is here, but yet they always find a way to get out of work.
That's creative procrastination or creative
Yeah.
avoidance. Yeah, of course. I think the way that I try and frame creativity is it's the muscle that it's the thing that we're supposed to be doing. We are creative machines as humans, right?
Right.
That's what differentiates us from every other species on the planet, is our ability to make things. And whether you're making a cake, building a family, or a business, it's all creativity.
So will you get people in this to tap into creative muscle? So instead of being just a regular person, they will be like, why does Elon Musk think about all these big things to do?
For sure.
Right? Are you getting them to say, okay, I want you to understand what you've accomplished here already. You can do more with it if you utilize these tools or anything else.
For
like
sure,
that?
yeah, and that's like principle 3 of if we're all creative, and then creativity is a muscle. The third principle is that it's in creating in small daily ways, whether that's writing code or baking cake or building a business, that you actually understand that you have agency over your life. It's just creativity at a different scale. You're playing the piano now. You're weaving FUBU hats to sell on the corner.
Right. Mm-hmm.
It's the same set of muscles that help you understand that you can create the arc of your life. And what Alon's done is he's wildly creative in business. And when he is building all these individual businesses, he started to realize, like, wait a minute, I can change the course of humanity by moving us to Mars. So it's in the small daily act of creating, you start to understand that you have massive agency and you can literally do anything that you put your mind to.
And so how does this differentiate from your previous book?
Sure. So most of my previous books are creative in nature and that they're about photography,
Right.
this is the first book that is, I'm trying to make it like an action guide. Like you said, it's rise and grind, but rise and grind is so much about work. This is also some tactics with like literally how
So
to.
there's a method. There
Yeah.
are takeaways.
For sure, there's absolutely. It's a takeaway. It's a structured book. It's built on 4 key attributes or steps in a creative process. 1, imagine what's possible, whether you're talking about building a clothing line or your life or baking a cake. Then you design a plan to get there. If you're building a cake, it's like, what are the ingredients? If you're building a brand, I need 2-part brand, 1 part like style. I need some influencers to help me launch
Right.
it. The E is you're going to execute on that vision, which is very tactical, right? You're going to go in and figure out how you're going to take some money from investors, how you're going to grow your top line revenue. And then the last one, which I know you're huge on, is amplify. And amplify means everything comes to life as a team, even if you're an individual. A brand doesn't find success in Queens without the community to support it. So amplifying is a huge piece of, I think, the entrepreneurial journey that so many entrepreneurs, we make stuff, right? We put it out in the world and then it's tumbleweeds, it's crickets, because we haven't built a community around what we love.
You know, and I think that as you share that with me, I didn't realize that I had went down that path, and I didn't necessarily have a direction like you're giving somebody a blueprint, because when I created FUBU with my partners, you know, I could have tried to name it Daymond John, right? And I remember one of my partners saying to me, listen, man, you realize you've always been trying to help a certain type of community. You named it FUBU, Forest Bias, for people that love hip-hop. And then, so that was my first image or imagining. And then when I wanted to go and help further people, I said, how else can I help other people with entrepreneurship? So I imagined that maybe I can be a broadcaster or something. So, but I had to design the way to get out. So I made Display of Power, my first book. Then I had to execute it. So I had to go on tour and start doing that. And then Mark Burnett saw me, and then I'm on Shark Tank, and I'm amplifying it. So I ended up becoming the same exact thing, just in a whole different way, where I tried to really educate a culture that looks like me, who talks like me, who acts like me, no color necessarily, and show them that if I can do it, you can do it. So, but I never knew there was a pattern that I was following.
This is what I want the folks listening right now to know, and you as my friend. Like, I have figured out what worked for me, and then through my podcast, to show that you've been on, and through Creative Live, there's this. I've deconstructed the best work of the best minds in our lives, folks like you and Cuban and Ariana Huffington, Brene Brown, Richard Branson, and I can't find something that breaks this mold. Everyone has imagined something great, designed a plan to get there, executed against it.
So the fundamentals have always been there, and you're showing people now, you did this already. Check out the fundamentals. Now do it again in a different way. You know, as you're growing.
For sure, and I'm couching it in creativity, which people have couched in business and all those things. They're giving you a blueprint for something that happens in a perfect world, where you and I know that the world is not perfect. And why I couched it in creativity is because it's a very dynamic system. We're always inventing and reinventing and adjusting. That's part of the creative process, and it's required to find success.
So who's the target reader for this? Is this somebody in business, or is it somebody who says, you know what, I want to be the best father and a husband, and if I use these fundamentals to do that, I'll have a much more wealthier life with my loved ones, and then I'm also going to take those methods and use it in other places. I mean, who are the you know, I'm trying to think who's the reader.
So the reader is, I couch them in personas in the book, and we talk about people who are starters, who get something going and figure, and then they stop after it gets hard, or people who resist, like, oh, I'm not creative. But if you flip the script and it's not about who you're not and about some persona, it's truly, I'm trying to make the first book that addresses creativity in not a highbrow way. This is, you do not have to move to Paris. You do not have to start smoking cigarettes. You do not have to wear a beret. This is not about being a part.
I like a beret, baby.
It's not about being a part of the art world. It's about that we all are fundamentally creative, and what can you do with your creativity, whether it's build a family, make a cake, or build $1 billion business.
Can some people be too creative or not have harness, or no, excuse me, not govern their creativity, and then they're too much to the right and they haven't set the other ones in place, and they go, I'm waiting for somebody to discover my genius.
For sure. And let's go back to that framework, IDEA, idea. What I find is that in places like that, it's people, they don't execute the whole formula. Someone who imagines and designs a system but never does anything, they're called dreamers, right? They just, we walk in circle, we're like, oh, where's me? And then people who are just executing and amplifying the ideas of others, they're not dreaming big enough. They're just living in someone else's shoes as an employee or as someone who's not experiencing the full range of what their possibilities are. It takes that whole system, IDEA, to truly discover who you are and then build something that you love.
Now, when is this going to be out? And are you going to be doing any kind of tours?
Oh yeah. And I haven't. Yeah. It's coming out the 24th of September.
24th of September.
As you know, having sold some books before, and this is it's a great package for a new set of ideas. And if the folks like the goal is to get people to pre-order, because all that stuff builds up some momentum and signals to the publishers. So that's my journey right now, is I'm in the amplify period. It was crazy to write a book about creativity and be having to walk my own talk and take a spoonful of my own medicine. It got me wrapped around the axle a few times. It comes out the 24th. My hope that people can go check it out. It will be at your doorstep on the 24th if you order it now.
What if I follow these steps and I'm not in tune or with my are there like, listen, all right, you tried these, it didn't work, you should do something like, trial and error? How do people deal with that?
Sure. Well, that's part of the, I think books that paint a picture that's too perfect are problematic. That's part of what I love about you and your background, your story. You talk a lot of zigging and zagging and going back, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. So the book itself is based on my experience and the experience of the 150 people that I've had on my podcast. And the reality is that there are patterns, and when we acknowledge that everything isn't a direct line and we set our expectations for 2 steps forward, 1 step back, that step back doesn't feel so bad when we realize that, hey, Richard Branson, Daymond John, all these people that we admire and culture and look up to, they've had that same path. And of course, the book definitely points to Creative Live, which is the world's largest learning platform for creators and entrepreneurs that, it's been in business now for 10 years and we've got 10 million people on the platform. Of course, you can, there's a lot of stuff and support for the community and for learning there as well, or on Daymond On Demand.
All right, so
it doesn't profess to have all the answers.
No, I understand, but listen, nobody, if people don't know, most people know who you are. If they don't know who you are, and they would say, well, Daymond, why should I listen to this guy? But after 150 interviews of creatives and doing this, you have to be pulling out
for sure
the one thing or 10 things that you see that are connecting between every one of these individuals. So, of course, you're a brilliant photographer as well. Yeah, that would be good. I like this idea. I like the concept. I like the concept.
Well, and if you go back to the Shark Tank, like, you see so many ideas and you see places where these ideas are successful and where they're not. And I'm interested for you to deconstruct some of these folks that are on the show now. And you're like, oh, they're not actually either not imagining what's possible, they're not executing against this vision, or what's most common, honestly, is people are passionate. They can put themselves to work doing things that are hard, but they haven't spent time building and cultivating community, which is a huge piece of being successful. Nothing happens, even if you're a solo singer. You've got the person, you got your guitar tech, you got your manager, you got the team around you, and it's especially both creativity and entrepreneurship or team sports.
No, 100%, because that's how you get feedback. Innovation is when 2 people who see things totally different agree and or say this needs to be altered or changed, and then you come up with something. And so, absolutely. So I want to take some fan questions, and let me see what I got here. So how do you balance being inspired by others' creativity but not being intimidated by it?
Ooh, love that. And I would say that's one of the top 5 questions that I get asked in my role as a creator and entrepreneur, and having sat with so many folks like yourself. And it's pretty simple. What people who end up getting intimidated, what they're trying to do is they're trying to be the next Daymond John instead of the first there.
Of them.
Yeah. And it's intimidating as soon as you try and be someone else or compare yourselves to others. But if you're only comparing yourself to you and what's possible for you, then the game and the table is completely changed. And if you can step into that and own that, it's not perfect. It doesn't have to be a straight line. It's not just a path paved to success. If you can be you unapologetically, that's the most important thing. The answers are in here. Who do you like?
Yeah, you're the only one that has the operation manual to yourself, right?
And we're programmed to be so many people. To like, your parents from a young age start telling you got to be like this. You should go be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever is important to your culture or your family. And the reality is the answer's in here. You know what you should be doing. And if you can find a way to listen to that, which the book gives you some really specific instructions, that's maybe the most important thing, is being the most unabashed, unashamed, unapologetic version of yourself.
I always joke about it, but Old Dirty Bastard didn't try to be anybody but an old dirty bastard, right? And he was successful at it, so
He's very
that works,
good at
right?
that.
All right, so the next fan question is, what are some of your best tips to discover what your creative calling is?
This is super easy and it's very intuitive, but we're also taught that it's so much more complicated. We all had a moment where we were on our path, where we heard our calling and we were doing the thing we were supposed to be doing, but we just did it for a little bit and it felt good. And then we got pushed off that path for all the shoulds and woulds that culture imposes on us. Your parents said you got to go do X.
Yep.
And for you, maybe it was like, wait a minute, I'm moving units. These hats are selling on the street corner. This feels good. I'm seeing my product out in the world representing who I am as a creator and supporting my community, inspiring them. And I don't know, I think you went to work at Red Lobster for a little while, right?
I did, but even before that, I mean, if you really think about it, what did I do? I merged my love for hip hop with my love for dressing.
Yeah.
But it disappeared from 12 to like 20 when I was trying to chase and do everything else for money or something else. And when I finally said, wait a minute, let me put this peanut butter with jelly. You know what I mean? I put hip hop with clothing, and I said, I love this, and I'll do it for the rest of my life if I can.
You're describing the same exact arc that happens to so many people, especially the most successful people. I will put myself in that camp because I did the same thing. I was super passionate as a young person, and then my second grade teacher was like, Chase, I overheard her tell my mom, Chase is so much better at sports than he is at art. And so what did I do? I just went headlong into soccer and football and went to college on a soccer scholarship, played on left development sports teams until I realized that that's an important part of me, but it's not all I am. And like you, about my early 20s, I came back and I was like, wait a minute, I need to be a photographer.
Good. All right, so
Be unapologetically you.
who were some of your creative influences?
Oh, one of the things that I think is maybe it sounds illogical, but it's this guy who created a clothing brand. It's not an accident that I stopped by. I'm only here for 24 hours, and I'm on my way to the airport right now. But I think of you as a inspirator.
No, now you bullshitting me. Come on, let's go to somebody else we all know.
Inspirator. I take a lot of inspiration from some dissonant companies, if you will, like someone like Richard Branson, who has. So Richard's got 400 companies. He's an investor in Creative Live.
Absolutely amazing individual.
Amazing. Yeah. And he's done it on his terms. And he started out with a student newspaper, went to a rock music label where they're signing crazy bands, and then an airline. I mean, talk about this.
Soda.
Yeah. Crazy.
Cell phones.
Right.
You know, I'm always fascinated with Gary Vee, how creative he is. How many ways can you say the F word in a conversation and still get booked for speaking by corporations?
That's crazy.
How do you do that?
I know. He's cracked his own special formula, which is something. He's a dear friend of ours, so we can talk about him. But Gary's a great inspiration because, again, he's done it in so many different, from baseball cards to wine to the agency world. He's very inspirational. Also, someone like Andy Warhol, who was so seminal and phenomenal in, I think one of his quotes was, just keep making stuff. Just keep creating. Let everybody else be the judge. And while they're judging what you just made, go make something else.
You know what I love about Jobs? You know what he did, how he said, nobody wants to hear about how many more giga whatever we have in a computer, but we're going to find a market to let people be creative and let them be who they are. So he took the same computer that everybody basically has. I mean, he added some shits and giggles to it. But other than that, he just found a different market, and that was the creativity. And the people he found were creatives, and they spread his word.
For sure.
I love how these things happen.
Yeah, and people like Sarah Blakely with Spanx.
Sarah, of course, absolutely.
Amazing. Like, when no one would make her patterns for her undergarments, she started making them herself and finding individual humans instead of some big factory to do it. Like, that's the sort of grit and resilience that's crazy inspiring to me.
All right, so let me see another question here. How do you beat creative or writer's block?
Oh man, I tell you, it was interesting to be writing a book about creativity and getting writer's block, and then I would literally go back a couple hundred pages where I started talking about what to do when you're stuck. Right. And there are two things, and it comes to your intuition of knowing what to do. And this goes for writer's block, or if you're stuck as an entrepreneur. Either you just have to keep showing up and work through it, right? You just have to keep showing up. Sometimes when you're on the street corner, someone's not buying, you go to a different street corner, you keep showing up for yourself and for your community. And then here's the magic, is you have to, through listening to your own intuition, to know when to completely walk away, take a break. Because I've been super burned out in my career and just keep bashing my head against the wall and thinking that I'm doing something wrong or I'm not. And all I need to do is step away for, sometimes it's a day, sometimes it's a week, sometimes it's an hour. Just refocus on something else, and then the answer comes right back to me.
Well, can people also, though, try to make it too perfect what they're delivering and never get it done because it's just never right to them?
Yeah.
It's always got to be perfect when they don't realize that, no, that's just a step, because now you need the feedback on why what's not working.
This is what not to kiss your ass, but I love what how you advocate for this, for the entrepreneurs to think in Shark Tank. Like, no, you need to put it out in the market. You need to get some feedback, and that's where I'm going to help you. I'm going to help you understand the feedback, go out to market with a new, slightly different product. Just keep innovating, improvising, and keep putting it out there in the world.
All right, so we got 2 more questions because I know you got limited time. So what are your thoughts on social media and how it either affects or helps creativity?
Okay, so
or creatives.
Creatives, yeah.
Remember, I'm dyslexic, so don't worry about all that.
No, I can't read that. That's too far away from me even, too. So I think social media is a double-edged tool. I think it's an amazing opportunity. It's democratized, right? We used to have to seek support from a publisher or the gallerist or the business owner or the Hollywood studio to get our films made.
Sure.
And now we can make that on our own. The same is true with distribution. We don't have to be on Shark Tank to get our ideas out in the world. We have social media and we have the internet. So the challenge that I see with that, and to get me wrong, don't get me wrong, that's a very important channel, but I see people use that as an excuse, and they use social. What I like to think about is not using it to necessarily only consume. If you're not creating on social and sharing what it is that you're working on before you're consuming. This is also from a mutual friend of ours, Marie Forleo.
Mm-hmm.
You know Marie.
Of course, brilliant woman.
Yeah, brilliant woman, and she advocates creating before consuming, especially on social media. If you're waking up and you're scrolling through everybody else's highlight reel, and you're comparing it to the fact that you have a doctor's appointment and you're behind on your car payment, and you're looking at their highlight reel and you're comparing it with your real life, that's no way to start your day.
Right.
But if you've got a project, you got a plan, you got a strategy, you want to put your work out there, your artwork, your clothing, your vision for the world, then social media can be super powerful. It's just all how you use it.
All right, so there you have it, and I gave you guys as many questions as I can ask right now. I don't want to give away all the things in the book, but the reason, I'm going to probably do a post on this. The reason why CEOs and top individuals read 40 to 50 books a year and an employee only reads 1 or 2, and what do you get out of the 40, 50 books? What you end up finding out is if myself, Chase, and Tim Ferriss, and Napoleon Hill, and all these people who don't know each other, who don't, I don't know what he's writing when I'm writing my book. If you start to find all these common denominators between all these various things in various ways, and whether you're reading books about Genghis Khan or this or that, when you find these things, you start to say, there's something there, and I got to do it, right? Because if you just get one person to give you advice, they're going to tell you whatever the hell they want and take your money, right? So the reason why you get in all this information is to pick the things that work for you, and then you find these 10 or 20 or 100 principles or fundamentals, then you know you're doing the right thing. It either reinforces that you're already doing something that's really brilliant, or you should try this as well. So that's why I tell everybody they got to keep reading more of this stuff, because it's hard to write a book.
For sure.
That was brutal. As hell.
Talk about, did you do your own read it? Did you do your Audible?
Yeah. No, Audible?
Oh,
no.
that was brutal.
I needed to speak and spell. You'd have been here. I'm dyslexic, man.
That's right. I'm throwing you under the bus. I'm telling you, it was brutal, but I loved it. I wouldn't have traded for the world, and it was a labor of love. It's been years in the making, and it comes from a lot of experience and a lot of wisdom that I've learned from folks like you. Bud.
So where can fans pick up this book, and is there a specific link you want people to use?
Anywhere books are sold. Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Books A Million, anywhere. And, of course, if they want to check out creativecalling.com, which is the name of the book.
Creativecalling.com.
There's some bonousses that are going on there.
The book is Creative Calling, and you got to go on creativecalling.com.
Creativecalling.com,
Cool.
Yeah. And again, anywhere books are sold, it's my hope that this is an entrepreneurial, a creative thing that makes you feel good about who you are and helps you understand that tapping into that thing that you're supposed to be doing, that you're put on this world to do, not about moving to Paris, wearing a beret, finding a new set of friends. It's native in you right now. That you can do that and find success and joy in your life.
Thanks for stopping by, brother.
Appreciate
Love you as always.
Yes,
I
I'm
know you got to
grateful.
get out of here. You got another city to go to.
Thank you for having me on the show,
Stop
bud.
by.
Because
Amazing.
Because this. Why wouldn't I?